Hi everyone, welcome back to Coffee, Books, and Rain. I'm Rachel with my coffee, with my books and my reviews, and we have rain today. So I am living the dream that I love to live. And it has been a busy week. I am trying to get all my episodes done for the month of September because I have a very full month of October and I'm looking forward to it because not only do I have books, I have gotten a townhouse and I will be closing on it in October. So that is very exciting. I have always only rented, so this is my first, I guess, big adult purchase, I guess, beyond my degrees and schooling and vehicles, which I don't buy new, I buy used anyway. But this is my next big adult, I guess, milestone, is finally buying my own place. So I guess cheers to that, right? But let us go ahead and dive straight into the book of the moment, and it is A Steeping of Blood by Hafsah Faizal. And this is Blood and Tea, number 2. And if you did not read the first one, which is A Tempest of Tea, this is a duology. So this does wrap up that series. I just realized my glasses have a bit of a schmooge on them. But I would highly recommend not reading this one if you have not read the first one. I don't remember if I've done an episode on A Tempest of Tea, but I think I did, perhaps a year and a half or so ago. But since it's been such a little while, I cannot guarantee it. So we're going to still dive into this, which is the epic conclusion, according to Goodreads, of the Blood and Tea series. The epic conclusion to the number 1 best-selling A Tempest of Tea by Hafsah Faizal. The gritty fantasy duology about an orphan girl and her crew who get tangled in a heist with vampires, perfect for fans of Leigh Bardugo, Six of Crows. She's had her tea, now she's out for blood. White Roaring is sharpening its fangs after the deadly night that left the city in shambles. The press are dead. The public calls for justice. Vampires are in danger. And, amid the turmoil, the Ram announces a celebration. Still reeling from bloodshed, Arthi Casimir has no time to mourn the death of anyone, let alone her own. She has no time for love either, but it had saved her life. As Arthi navigates new emotions and new allies, she must reassemble her scrambled crew and scrape what little they have left to fight one last time. She will need to face the ghosts of her past to do it, in Ceylon. After the jaw-dropping ending of number 1 best-selling A Tempest of Tea, Arthi and her crew still have plenty of hearts to break and crimson red secrets to uncover. Hafsah Faizal crafts a deliciously twisty, seductive sequel that will leave readers breathless until the very last page. It is pretty girthy. I want to say my audiobook was about 13 and a half hours long, and it's about 448 pages in hardcover. It will be, it was, because today is a day behind. It is first published September 23rd of 2025. So I have lost track of days, so I do apologize, but I do think I am still getting my episodes published on my channel. So hopefully y'all have plenty to watch or plenty to skip, depending on how you feel about some of the books that have come out lately. And I just hope that you find some that maybe resonate with you. And again, if supernatural and vampires doesn't really resonate with you, I understand. But that is mainly what we're working with here. And I do enjoy this series. There is something very urban fantasy meets, of course, vampires. And even though they don't seem to have all of the same stipulations as some, of course, more traditional vampires, I still think that these vampires are pretty fun. There is still that bloodlust, but some of them are a little better able to control it than the others. Now, Again, if you have not read the first one, some of the things that I talk about in this book may potentially be a spoiler. So if you intend to read this duology, then I would probably pause this episode and come back for when you are ready for it. Otherwise, I am going to dive straight in with some things that are potentially going to spoil the first book. So, in this particular book, we start off with the question of whether Arthi is gonna make it. And I think we kind of knew that she was going to, because I don't think they're gonna kill off our main character right at the end of book number 1. I think it would have probably been rated a little more poorly or not been a number 1 bestseller had she not made it through. However, in book 1, she was more or less like a half vampire. In this book, she has now become a full vampire. In order to fully save her life, she did have to be turned into a vampire. And though she is now a vampire, she's immortal, she's not unkillable. So there are still ways to die. And we have all of the individuals pretty much from the previous book. We've got Jen, who of course he is kind of like her brother. We've got what's his name? Mateo, who is kind of like Arthi's love interest. We've got Flick, who's kind of Jen's love interest. And we've got a couple others as well. And I'm only going to kind of focus on these 4 individuals, Arthi, Jen, Mateo, and Flick, because I think really they are some of the bigger characters in this book. And of course, I'm not saying that the other characters are not important, but I do think mentioning some other characters may potentially spoil certain aspects. So in this particular book, we are kind of coming to the understanding that Jen's parents, who he's been searching for, who I guess he thought was dead, and he's been hunting for all these years, and even Arthi has been looking too, they've kind of found a track or a trail that leads to them, they think. And so Jen is really hopeful that, maybe they're unwillingly working with the Ram. Arthi's kind of like on the fence. She's like, it could go either way, big guy. But we also kind of encounter the fact that Jen is also now a vampire. He was not in the first one, and he didn't know that she was a half vampire. So we do start this particular book, this book number 2, with a bit of conflict between the 2 siblings. There's a lot of tension. Completely understandable. Jen feels a little betrayed that she didn't trust him, but Arthi didn't feel like, it wasn't that she couldn't trust him, it was more like her shame to bear. So, of course they have to have, and it's not a knockdown drag out fight, but more or less like when you get into a heated argument and all those words that you always wanted to say kind of come out anyways, one of those kind of fights. So you kind of lay everything out on the table in what's a pretty heated argument. And of course, that's when I guess they're able to move on with each other, like move forward with each other. However, they do also learn that Jen's parents are potentially in Ceylon, which is where Arthi came from. And so she does remember some things about Ceylon. But she also is really kind of tormented by the, so sorry, I just clicked on somebody's review and it's just Mateo Arthi endgame will happen like that. And it startled me. Wow, this person. Okay. That person was very overly zealous about all sorts of things. So anyway, my bad. I got distracted so hard with that one. I wanted to open a review to see if they had mentioned anything else other than what I'm going to mention, because like I said, I like to do that with certain books. But anyway, so now we're going to Ceylon to find Jen's parents, and Arthi is having a little bit of PTSD from her last boat ride from Ceylon to White Roaring. And Mateo is there with them, but Flick is not. Flick is staying behind because they've given her the job of almost outing her mom as the ram. And of course, if you've read the first one, then you will know what that means. But so at one point, Flick gets captured in this particular book. Don't think it's a secret because it happens within the first 25 or 30%, I would say. So Flick gets captured by her mom's guys, her mom's goons. And they actually take her, and she has a bit of a face-to-face with her mom. But while the guards are there and the mom is wearing the mask and all this sort of stuff, she pretty much is like, yeah, mother. And the guards are like, what? And then so the mom, the ram, goes ahead and offs them so they can't tell anybody who the ram is because she's supposed to be uber duper secret. Well, of course Flick knows because it's her mom, but her mom wants her to come back into the fold and I guess be part of this horrible manipulative government she's trying to run, which is not going so well. But so a lot of things are happening because Flick is supposed to forge some invitations to a celebration her mom is having. And then she gets captured and they do some damage to her hands. And so, of course, that's going to put doing this forgery thing, because that's what she's been best at, is forgery. And now her hands are potentially out of commission. Or are they? Question mark, question mark. So we are on this kind of these slightly diverging paths to ultimately come back together is the goal of this particular book. Is we are trying to get Jen's parents. We're also trying to get some information. We're going to blow the whole thing, blow the lid off this popsicle stand, so to speak, with regards to the ram. And I was really intrigued by it. I was very captivated. I do like the narrator. My one critique is that it feels slow. Even though I listened to it at a 1.2 speed, I felt like the narration was still fairly slowly done. And I almost wanted to bump it up to just like a 1.5 to see if that actually helped me get through it or helped make it feel more exciting and engaging. Now, I know half of this book is potentially like atmosphere and creating that, like those moody, broody scenes, which are kind of like London, but not really London because we're in a different world, different universe, different fantasy realm. And so, of course, then we go take the boat to Ceylon, which is not very far boat ride, it doesn't seem, but seems to be a completely different different aspects to its area as well. And it also seems like Flick finds a map where it kind of shows some of the areas that have been taken over by this particular empire. And it's very interesting because some parts are not. And I was very intrigued by that because I felt like we could potentially do more world building, or we could actually do more stories within this world, perhaps is a better way to say it. Because even though maybe we're done, because it's a duology, and maybe we're done with Arthi and Jen, maybe perhaps, and I'm just throwing that out there possibly, I feel like this world has a lot to offer. I don't know if we want to explore different people that maybe we've only touched on, or maybe just completely different people we haven't mentioned at all. But I do feel as though this book was entertaining and engaging, and the world could be much bigger than a duology. So those are some of my thoughts on that. Some of my other thoughts that I guess, because I'm only going to give this book about a 4-star. I think it's a fairly fair assessment, because I probably give it like a 4.25, but I will round it down to 4, is it seems to be much more like, and I'm going to say it like spicy scenes, but romantic scenes between Arthi and Mateo. And I wanted to see a little bit more with Flick and Jin, even though, of course, they're not like the sole focus, and they are kind of separated by a continent right now, or at least for parts of the book. So once they come back together, it's just like, I think I just hit that. It's pretty cute. I like Flick and Jin a little bit better than Arthie and Mateo, because I think Arthie and Mateo just feels a little, not forced, but predictable. And I guess Jin being this proper gentleman who holds a gun but now's a vampire sort of guy, because that's kind of how I pictured him. And then Flick, who is this noble woman's only daughter turned forger. I like their personalities, their dynamic. It just, all of those two worked for me really well. So there were a couple spicy scenes with Mateo and Arthie that I was just like, okay, all right, let's get to the good part. For me, is the action of the book. For some people, and I get it, the romance is definitely a highlight of the book, but for me, I can take it or leave it. And honestly, if you're gonna go on and on about it, I'm probably just going to go ahead and leave it and move on to the next portion of it. But I do understand that it is listed genre-wise as romantasy. I just felt like it was heavier-handed in the romantasy. A little less heisty than the first one was, because the first one felt like an supernatural vampires Ocean's 11-esque thing that we're trying to do. This one still has some of those elements, but maybe not as strong as the first one. So those are just some of my thoughts with regarding that. It says historical fiction. I'm not really sure, because I think we're supposed to be in a fantasy realm, so I'm not sure historically fiction wise what we're focused on, because I don't remember in my history where the vampires were. But hey, you know what? That's just my thoughts. But I'm going to go ahead, leave this here. And with all of that being said, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this journey. If you have not liked and subscribed already, I hope you'll consider it. And I will see you all on the next page. Have a great one. Bye.